What moment in your life made you realize that you were the villain to someone else's story? What moment made you realize you could be rightfully labeled as a bad person? I'm sure I'm the villain in lots of people's stories. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. When I was younger, I anonymously posted some pretty gnarly things about a classmate online. Me and my friend thought it was pretty funny, and honestly it was kind of mindless. But it did a lot of harm to her, and I didn't realize I was a cyberbully until later on. I ended up meeting with her a few years later to admit what I had done and make amends. She threw me out of her house, and for the first time I really saw the damage I did and how much it had hurt her. She ended up contacting me after that to say she forgave me and respected that I told her face to face. It's something I was so ashamed of I was going to take it to my grave, but I'm glad I owned up to it. I am obviously the villain of that story though. And it hurts because it's generally very uncharacteristic of me, but it's something I have to live with. I'm the villain to so many people. I'm a teacher. I do villainous things like set homework, tell children off for being despicable to other children, tell their parents what lazy little beasts they are, and so on. I don't really think any of that makes me a bad person though. I'm the villain that ruined my mother's life in her mind. Backstory: I was born with a lot of health problems. I was constantly in the hospital, and that put a huge strain on my parents. My dad was only 17 and my mother was 18. I am a twin and my sister is perfect. When I was about 5, my parents were fighting a lot and got a divorce. My mother had developed a drug habit and blamed me for everything. Her failed marriage, her drug habit, losing custody of my sister and older brother, everything. When I was about 5 or 6, my mother dropped my siblings off with my dad along with her child support payment and told me that she wished I had died. My dad immediately kicked her out of my hospital room and started damage control, but it had already been said. My dad did his best to shield us from everything, but life was hard. He took every job he could get to make ends meet. He would do everything he could to make me smile and always told me he didn't care what happened as long as we, his children, were okay. For a long time I wondered if my mother was right and if my family would have been better off if I had died. I was a huge burden on my family and I'll hate it. I know how to socialize, but I don't understand people all the time. Over the years, particularly when I was younger, my words and actions have hurt others. It was not my intention, but I hurt them, nonetheless. In their minds, if they remember me at all, I'm at the very least a jerk. I used to be a hater when I was a teenager. Put others down trying to raise myself up. Didn't work. Luckily, I realized that behavior stemmed from low confidence and self-esteem, so I worked on that. I was 19 and my baby sister was about 2. My mom had been laying the abuse on thick for a week and left me alone to babysit. I didn't make it a habit at all being mean to my sister. I love her like she was my own. But that day I stubbed my toe and she was laughing about it because to a 2-year-old that's hilarious. I just screamed and yelled at her, trying to upset her and make her feel how I felt. But she kept laughing. I'm so glad she was too little to absorb that bullshit, but I'm deeply ashamed of myself for trying to emotionally abuse a 2-year-old. There was this other student when I was in nursing school. I couldn't stand him. Like, his personality to me was so annoying. I would roll my eyes every time he talked. It was a very small class, so he noticed. Despite that, he was always decent to me. I would always think about it afterwards. At the end of the day, I would tell myself I would do better the next day. I never did control it. We were just too different. One day, I caught him and this other student cheating. I was cool with that other student, but after that I turned against her too. I immediately reported them both. I wasn't even mad about it though. I realized later that only did it because I couldn't stand him. Had it been just the other student, or anyone else, I would have probably just confronted them. The other student got kicked out, but he stayed. The whole class was against him though, even the instructors. He didn't even go to our graduation or participate in our group celebration and stuff. Pretty sure because of me. I knew the whole time I was being a bad person, but would push those thoughts back and continue to justify my passive bullying. I didn't really accept that I was the bad guy here until maybe a year later. More than once I've ghosted friendships, either when I've been wronged or because I just saw their true colors and wasn't interested, and rather than waste more of my time and energy letting them know why, I just cut all ties. A guy friend and I had been friends for about 2 years when, suddenly, we both caught very strong feelings for each other. We were both still choosing to deny it, to ourselves and to each other, when he became interested in taking out a girl from our class. I happened to be good friends with her, and I talked him up so big to her, because I was in love with him. She was thrilled to date him. It ended up with he and he flirting like crazy in front of her when we were drunk, and it was apparent his interest wasn't in her at all. It rightfully ruined my relationship with this girl, and she will never trust me the same way again. Worst part is, this wasn't even high school. We were in our 20s. I am 100% the villain in her story, and it appeared I finally showed my true colors to her. I had never been so careless with a friend's feelings like I had been with hers. When I was 7 I kicked a boy who was autistic because he put his arm around me. Oki said it. Oh, countless. They're right about it and have the right to feel that way. The thing is, it doesn't affect me. I either agree or disagree with how wrong I was, and I can decide how I feel about it without keeping myself awake at night because someone feels badly about me. Their truth is theirs and mine is mine. First, villain to someone else does not equate to being a bad person. Second, I'm sure I'm a villain to several people, mostly from high school, but I stand by everything I've done. There's one thing where I don't stand by how I did it, rejected someone in a rude way because I was surprised and didn't have time to think of how to be tactful, but that does not make me a bad person. I have for the longest time always tried to do the right thing or the good thing. But one time I didn't. I was shunned by my class due to a false rumor, only found out years later that was why. There was another girl who was cast out for a while too. Booty don't remember why. When there was an opening for me to be accepted in the class in general, I left her behind in favor of these people who had kind of bullied us both at that point. I know I was the bad person in that instance and don't hold it against if she doesn't ever forgive me for it. That's a moment I look back and realize that even I am a weak person and can be selfish even when I know that it isn't right. It makes me think harder to be objective and fair. For every story where you're the villain, it's possible that you're the hero to an equal number of people. There's light and dark in everybody. I told a girl I knew that her boyfriend made a move on me when I was really drunk. I told her nothing happened, but he was extremely persistent. She stayed with him and blocked me from all socials. Then she told friends we had in common that I was a slut who was trying to steal him. The R-rated truth that I didn't tell her is I was almost unconscious and my friend caught him groping me and taking pictures with his phone up my skirt. She kicked him out. Thank God for her. I don't know what he would have done if she hadn't walked in when she did. Maybe I should have told her the whole truth, but I had a misplaced guilt about it and tried to soften the blow for her. Didn't realize it till I was much older, but me and a group of friends openly made fun of a girl saying she smelled like pee. To the point where she came up to us crying saying she didn't smell like pee and asked us to stop. She didn't have many friends and maybe did smell like pee, but we were awful to her. To this day I can't believe I was that person. I thought I was being funny. We did so many mean things, excluding kids and spreading rumors. I was a bully, probably a villain in someone's eyes. I didn't put 2 and 2 together when my friend was sexually assaulted by my other friend's brother in high school. We essentially kicked her out of our friend group for hooking up with the brother, and it wasn't until a few years ago when she made a social media post me tooing the brother that I realized what happened. He was an adult and she was underage, so I don't know how on earth we all decided she instigated it. I hate to think of how we added to her pain. When a really good friend cut ties with me, it hurt so bad I was a wreck for days. It made me question everything about myself. It was likely that I asked too much of her since I went through a breakup and was really leaning on her for support. She also went through a breakup and then went straight into a different relationship. I was bitter about her finding love again so quickly after her breakup, and I really regret the subtle way I showed the bitterness. I'm probably the villain in her story. I feel bad about it. I don't think I'm a bad person, but there are plenty of moments when I disregarded the feelings of others. Mostly in my teens. I didn't have bad intentions, but I was bad at considering other people's perspectives and I didn't feel the need to hold back my opinion for anyone else's benefit. One example, in middle school a girl I ate lunch with would repeatedly complain about being overweight, but she drank a pop every day at lunch. I told her that pop definitely contributed to her weight. She continued to drink pop and complain, so I told her that it was annoying for her to constantly complain if she wasn't willing to do anything to change. Throughout middle school, this girl would be not talking to me, which I honestly didn't notice until our mutual friend went to the trouble of informing me. I am 100% sure that girl thought I was a villain. In early college I was also intentionally cruel to my friend's boyfriend, pretty much whenever I was around him. It was over the edge of too mean to quite be considered friendly banter. I held a lot of resentment towards him because he had cheated on my friend, and I didn't really want to be nice to him. Later he drunk cried to me about it, and I felt kinda bad because I didn't realize it affected him that much. I toned it down a bit because I realized that I needed to respect my friend's choice to be with him, even if I couldn't support it. I am the villain to my ex and his family. I've been called evil and horrible and told I should die. All but one of his relatives believes I am truly vindictive and despicable. What I did to deserve those labels? I had the nerve to leave an abusive man and fight for custody of our daughter. I was evil for expecting a father not to hurt his fiancée and child. I was despicable for holding him accountable for his actions. I was horrible for not saying of course it's okay to physically and mentally abuse us. You're so special you shouldn't have to act like a human being. So I accept being evil and villainous. Because that means my daughter and I are safe and healthy. Realizing now that I've been ruthless with a lot of guys' hearts. Feel bad about it now but honestly didn't consider that at the time. When I was a teenager, I was extremely unaware that I was gay. When a boy was interested in Mel kind of went along with it because I thought that was how it was supposed to be. I thought it was normal that you kind of didn't want to be touched by your partner at my age, 16, and that you wanted to make excuses to have a weekend to yourself, among a lot of other things that can be quite hurtful. Those were all good guys that I could have been great friends with, but I was a pretty uncaring girlfriend to them and they didn't deserve that. It was harmful to everyone involved. I know I shouldn't have done it but I read my mother's journal because she's schizophrenic, a malignant narcissist and constantly gaslit me. I just wanted to see if she was crazy or if she knew she was lying. She had twisted every situation to make me out to be the bad guy. I think the only thing that makes me feel like I'm definitely a bad person is that I get mean when I'm psychotic. I had a complete breakdown due to a concussion and post-concussion syndrome, just after being promoted. After months on disability I went back to work and am just not ready. I am probably a villain to my boss. Or at least a massive inconvenience. Cheated on my boyfriend of 7 years in college because I was immature and wanted attention. He found out not even a week after I moved to his college town to start at the same university with him. It was awful dealing with that. It was worse because I did it to myself and I was the bad guy. Forgiving myself and also trying to care for myself in a new town, where I knew no one except my now ex and all of our mutual friends. Definitely felt like I could be viewed as a villain and would understand if I still am. I used to call this kid in school Garth every time I walked past him in the hall because he dressed/looked like Garth from Wayne's World. I didn't put any thought into it at all. I was not trying to be cruel, I was just being a dumb hyper teenager. Well, one time he finally flipped out and screamed, "Don't ever call me Garth again." Then ran away upset. I was totally stunned but immediately realized what I hadn't before. He clearly had those glasses and dressed that way because he was very poor. He even had tape on his glasses. And I was basically pointing that out every time I passed him in the hall. Cannot believe I didn't realize what I was doing before. Just thought it was a good-natured joke but I was basically bullying the hell out of the guy. Too many times. I oftentimes got caught up in trying to be strong and blunt and ended up just being a straight-up asshole. I've been a jackass to my younger brother in ways that I'm sure are going to shape him into an insecure teenager. I've been mean to people who were/are kind to me and I feel don't deserve their kindness. I'm really trying to work on it. I was in a college game theory economics class and we were playing a game. We were divided into 3 teams. Game theory is basically how you make a decision when you don't know how the other players are going to make a decision. So we were all airline companies and we had $1,000. We had to pick how much we were going to spend on advertising, price, and quantity. Each round the teacher plugged all our answers into an Excel file and we each got a hypothetical number that was profit, then we would play again. This girl's team was in last and let me tell you, this girl was being a true Karen about it. She was complaining between each round and our teacher was the sweetest dude. So finally she said something along the lines of, "This is so stupid because advertising doesn't lead to higher prices. You don't see Rolexes being advertised because they know their value." And she said it all snarky to the teacher and I clapped back in like 1 second flat and I am a very loud person, so the room went silent. I said something like, "You don't see Rolex advertisements because you are not their target market. Rolex is not going to pander to a broke college kid, Jesus Christ, just sit down and play the game." She sat down completely quiet and then, after the next round, she got up and left with the game still going on. My team was like, "You know she's probably crying, right?" And I was not dealing with it because she was talking down to the teacher and that was pissing me off. I thought about the situation as if I were watching a movie, and realized I would have been on his side, not mine. It was difficult because I did have to remove my emotions from the scenario, because I felt that what I did was justified. But once I laid it out, I just realized he was in the right. When I was in elementary school my friends were pretty mean to a few people. They kept trying to be friends with us, but my friends would be mean and exclusionary to discourage them. Having been bullied, this bothered me a lot at the time, but I was so insecure about keeping my friends I didn't say anything. It wasn't until I was older I got the courage to call my friends out on their bad behavior. I ghosted my 2 ex-best friends. Just straight up stopped writing in the group chat, and after 2 weeks of them not mentioning me, inviting me out, asking about how I am, group chat messages were just generic open questions to everyone, I just chose to not answer them, I left the chat. They added me back and asked what's up, and L just left again. We had been friends for ages, so I'll understand that they deserved some sort of explanation, but I just couldn't be arsed. For a little while I felt like they had become closer to each other and drifted further apart from me. When we hung out all 3 of us, I felt like a third wheel. And it's fine, it happens, people drift apart, but it obviously hurt me, and I know I hurt them too by leaving without explanation. When I was in high school I was dealing with a pretty difficult home life and was inadvertently taking it out on my friends at school. My best friend finally told me she was done with my shit. I was pretty heartbroken as didn't really have anyone else, but I started to look back on my behavior and it made me realize what a horrible friend LD been. She was a really great and caring person and knowing I had said hurtful things and acted poorly made me realize I was a bad person at the time. I've tried to make amends since but she hasn't responded when I've reached out so I've just had to let it go. For a year in middle school I treated one of my friends poorly. And I didn't even realize. D constantly interrupt her and get annoyed with things she said. And I ended up losing friends cause of it. It wasn't till years later I realized what I did and why. Me and her are very alike. We even look alike. But I hated myself so much at that time. And that is why, I think, I did that. I have since apologized sincerely to her. Years ago a woman reached out to me on Facebook and recounted a specific instance in junior high of a verbal and physical attack from me and another girl. I remembered the person but not the incident. I thought about it hard. I do not doubt that this event happened to this person, but I honestly do not think one was involved in the way she said I was. I concede that I likely verbally bullied her, at that time and others, but I believe that I would remember if I spit at and hit her, have not ever done those things. I apologized for the verbal abuse while stating that I didn't remember the incident the way she did. An apology is not enough, but what else can I do but be better going forward? I accept that I was a bully in different ways to different people. I hate myself for it and these are the thoughts that keep me up at night or intrude at different times. At 40 I still cringe about younger me. I know that deep down the volunteering and service that I perform is a way to try to shut those memories out, which helps me, but won't make it up to the people I was an asshole to.